Are you feeling frustrated with certain characters? Do you feel like you're losing to every character ever created? Well, today I'm going to tell you 5 character archetypes and how you can go from losing to them all to winning against them all, right? What's going on YouTube? I'm Headmaster Rich, and this is Imperial Kingdom Gaming, where we take beginners from beginner to intermediate to advanced. In essence, we take beginners from learning how to play fighting games to enjoying how to play fighting games. I've been playing fighting games for nearly a decade, and today I want to show you 5 character archetypes that you need to know as you get better at fighting games. So in the last video, we covered fighting game terminology. We covered 10 of the many terminologies terms that's out there. And so if you want to check that video out, we'll have a link in the description where you can go check out the previous video and you can get all caught up. All right, so, but tonight, you'll see this when you're ready to get good. Okay, what is that? What is it that you will see? You're going to see archetype after archetype after archetype after archetype after archetype. Because right now, as it stands, the way you're playing fighting games is you get in the ring and you wait for your opponent and they get in the ring and then you both fight. But when you compare it to something like the UFC or like a real combat organization, usually they will take the fighter, and once they sign the contracts, they will put them into a camp. And in that camp, it's their task and their job to learn the archetype of fighter that they're going to be fighting against. So if a wrestler is fighting a striker, then that wrestler has to learn how to deal with the striker, and vice versa. If the striker is fighting the wrestler, the striker has to learn how to deal with the archetype of the wrestler. In the fighting games, it's pretty similar, but the only difference is once you agree to a bout with an opponent, you don't have 8 weeks to train in training camp. You have 8 seconds, and then the fight's on. So it can be very difficult to identify who it is and what it is that you're up against. So today, we're going to go over 5 archetypes so that next time when you come across a said archetype, you'll be able to identify them, and maybe you'll even have something ready for them in response. Okay? So, 5 archetypes, right? Which one should we start with first? The first archetype we'll start with, and we'll start with this one because it's probably the first archetype you'll come against, and you'll realize that something's wrong, is zoner. The zoner archetype. So, the zoner archetype, what makes the zoner archetype special? Or what makes a zoner a zoner? What makes a zoner is their ability to lock you out from full screen, keep you out full screen, and any and every advance that you make, be it on the ground or through the air, will be met with a response. They excel at having complete control over the space on the ground and the space in the air. And in fighting games, there's only 2 ways you can approach your opponent, and that's on the ground or through the air. So that being said, zoner is a very powerful archetype. And I know a zoner will probably be the first archetype you come across because of the aforementioned. They're very good at shutting you out on the ground and in the air. The other archetypes that we'll cover tonight aren't necessarily as good as the zoner at keeping you out both ways. So that's why when you're matchmaking and you're playing people, you may have your struggles, but you necessarily are not having a hard time against any other archetype. And then you come across a zoner who's using either long limbs to keep you out, Dawson from Street Fighter. They're using a object like a chain, a long chain, Axolo, Guilty Gear, or they're using a projectile of some sort. Any of your characters that throw fireballs, a Ryu, a Ken, Dawzim has one that makes him a true zoner. He has limbs and a fireball to keep you out, and whatnot. So it sounds like the zoner has like a lot of powerful tools at their disposal, and that the zoner is pretty much impossible to deal with. That's what it seems like. But the truth is, the zoner, albeit they have lots of answers to keep you out both ways, the zoner has to make a stronger commitment than other characters do in terms of making a decision and keeping you out. So where other archetypes may not have such a hard time when they miss, when the zoner misses, they're in big trouble. If the zoner misses, it's a lot more punishing for the zoner than it is most other archetypes. With the fact that the way they keep you out requires a lot of time for them to reel their attack back in, a lot of recovery. So if a cowboy is like throwing a lasso at a bull or a calf or a cow, whatever, and the cowboy catches the cow or whatever he's trying to lasso, then he's hit his mark. But if he misses, and if he misses while the target is moving, then he has to retract all that line, all that rope, and then start up the lasso again to get it into that circular motion. And then he has to try all over again to catch the target. And that's what a zoner is like. It's like they're throwing a lasso out, and if they catch you, good. If they miss, then they have a long way to go to throw another one. And that's their weakness. When the zoner misses, if you're ready for the miss, if you anticipate that they're going to go high and you go low, or you anticipate they're going to go low and you go high, then you're in a good position to deal with the zoner. Most zoners have a poor defense up close, and they have poor pressure tools up close. They're pretty much weak overall when it comes to being up close. So if you can stay close to a zoner as much as possible, using your mobility to get around the zoner, then you'll be in a great position to deal with the zoner. So a few examples of zoners, let me name a few. Dawson for Street Fighter, Axolo, Guilty Gear, most characters with a projectile. Like Alyssa from Tekken 8, she's a zoner. She has a projectile so she can fire from full screen, and she does a good job of staying away from people. I think she's a true zoner. And there's a good amount of zoners, but not a lot. So with that being said, zoner, in summary, very good at keeping you out on the ground and in the air, but when confronted up close, they have a hard time pushing you back out, which is where they want you to go. So we'll just go ahead and move on to the second one. The second archetype we'll cover is the opposite to zoner, is a grappler, the grappler archetype. And how is the grappler the opposite to zoner? The grappler is the opposite because they're not as strong as the zoner is in both areas. They don't have very good anti-grounds. They don't have very good anti-airs. So the grappler, pretty much you can get close to a grappler much more often than you can a zoner. But what makes a grappler strong is they have access to a handful of throws, maybe even more depending on the character. And those throws do a lot of damage. So where Zoner has to systematically keep you out and pick you apart and do that over a duration of time, a grappler can bide their time, and when they get close or you get close to them, they can do lots of damage and get back in the fight or control the pace of the fight. So grapplers are very strong up close. They do lots of damage through their grabs. So another key trait of a grappler is that they're usually they're big. They're big, bulky. You can tell because they're like one of the biggest characters in the cast. It's rare you see a small grappler. And they're usually slow. They usually have a slow walk speed, and they may or may not even have access to a run or a dash. And also, their jump trajectory is lower than other characters as well. They're just big, heavy, and they grab you, do lots of damage. And what makes them weak? What makes them weak is the aforementioned, they do not have very good anti-grounds, they do not have very good anti-airs, and their mobility is limited. So if you get in close to a grappler, you pretty much, you're playing their game, but you're also playing your game. And if you get a good knockdown on a grappler, then you're usually in a good position. So some examples of grapplers would be Zangief from Street Fighter, a classic grappler, big, slow walk speed, doesn't have the best tools to keep you out, but when he grabs you, it does big damage. Potemkin from Guilty Gear, big also, very slow. When he gets close, does great damage, has moderate tools to keep you out, and he does not have access to a run. He literally cannot run. He can only walk, whereas other characters can walk or not walk, but run. He can't run. King from Tekken 8, another grappler. King is probably one of the more well-rounded grapplers on the list. King is super solid. He does a lot of things well. He does have great ways to keep you out. He doesn't have to worry about the area approach because he's Tekken. He's in Tekken. He doesn't have to worry about anti-airs. And he has a myriad of throws and lots of ways to get throws. And he does great damage. So one of the stronger grapplers in fighting games. And yeah, so grapplers, big guys or big characters, walk slow, not very mobile, don't keep you out very well, except King, and they do big damage when they grab you. Okay? And so next one on the list will be a mix of both characters. We'll get into the balanced archetype. And the balanced archetype is self-explanatory, but it's not. So a balanced character is a character that does a little bit of everything well at all times of the match. So whereas a zoner does good at long range all the time, they do okay at mid range, and they do bad at close range. A grappler does great at close range, okay at mid range, and terrible at far range. The balance does good at close range, good at medium range, and good at far range. So they're just pretty much pound for pound, solid characters all around. They have access to good tools to keep you out, like a good anti-ground and a good anti-air and good mobility. They have access to a good grab, probably some throw loops, which is to throw you over and over. They may even have access to a command grab, which is a very unique and special grab, something we'll cover later in our videos. But balanced characters are good at everything, a little bit of good at a little bit of everything. Or they also sometimes have access to a projectile, like a fireball, which you would usually see on a zoner. So they have a little bit of everyone's toolkit in them. So they sound like the ultimate archetype because they can do what everybody does and they never have any like glaring weaknesses because they have an answer for everything. And they're very beginner friendly. The balanced archetype is probably the archetype you should definitely start with first, when you identify it. And they show you how to play the game in its entirety because they let you do things that everybody does. So, with that being said, what makes the balanced archetype not so good? What's their weakness? Because they don't have any glaring weaknesses. They don't, but the only big weakness that a balanced character has is that, albeit they're good at everything, they can never, ever master any one thing. It's like impossible for them to master any one thing unless the game is just geared for the balance to be strong. So an example would be like Ryu from Street Fighter. He's probably the most balanced, vanilla, honest character on the cast. He's good up close, good mid, and good at far range. But with that being said, for as good as he is, him and his projectile, his fireball, which he can shoot at long range, mid range, those areas, he can never be as good as his counterpart Guile, the zoner, like one of the traditional zoners in Street Fighter. Guile is a master zoner. He specializes at keeping people out. It's his thing. He's a fireball expert, fireball master. Now, Ryu does have a good fireball, but Ryu's fireball can never be better than Guile's fireball. At least it's not supposed to. It's going to always be a little bit worse than Guile's fireball because Guile is built from the ground up to be a fireball specialist, whereas Ryu just has the option of throwing the fireball when he wants to. And another example, we'll stay with Ryu. Ryu is pretty good up close. He's not the worst and he's not the best. He's just decent up close. But a character like Cammy would just absolutely excel up close, and Ryu can never be better than Cammy up close because Cammy is a very, very powerful character when she gets in close proximity. She has lots of options when she knocks you down up close. Ryu has some, but she has more. And her close quarters game is very, very terrifying. Whereas when Ryu attacks you, it's oppressive, but you know if you have a good situation, you can get out of it. So with that being said, a balanced character is good at a little bit of everything, but they cannot master any one thing. And mastering any one thing is difficult, even for a character in fighting games, or you in your real life, working your job or doing your hobby. But when it comes to fighting games here at Imperial Kingdom Gaming, we have something that can help you get to mastery much quicker. Ultimate Beginner's Guide Fighting Game Secrets. That is going to be your stepping stone to getting to that level of play that you're coveting. And I'm going to tell you how you can get that. You can get that by clicking the description in our channels. Clicking the link in our channel's description, or by clicking the link in this video's description, right? And you can click those links. It'll take you straight into the setup to get you started with our PDF. It's a 45-page read. It has lots of information. It's going to clear up a lot of things that you may be confused about. It covers the things that we're talking about tonight, like archetypes. It also covers some of the things we spoke about in our previous videos and things that we haven't even talked about yet. So it's an excellent guide, pound for pound, a really great guide for you to get started. Probably the best guide for you to get started. Probably the best guide for you to get started with. And it's something that even intermediate players or advanced players would benefit from. So why not you? So go ahead, be sure to click the link in the video description or in our channel description, and we'll get you started on getting that 45-page beginner's guide that's going to get you going in the right direction. And speaking of directions, we're going to go into the next direction, we're going to go over the fourth archetype on our list tonight, and that's our rushdown character. Now, what's our rushdown character? Our rushdown, well, we mentioned one in the example before with Cammy. So what makes a character like Cammy rushdown? You know that you're playing against a rushdown character when you see that they're much faster than you, unless you yourself are playing a rushdown. But they'll usually be much faster than you. Visually, they're pretty small characters. They're typically, they're usually female characters too. That's another. They're usually female characters. And they are just so blazing fast. And they have a huge attack volume, meaning they attack you from the start of the match to the end of the match. And you're either doing a lot of blocking or, a lot of getting hit. They usually don't have access to a projectile like a fireball. You usually won't see that on a rushdown. And you usually won't see them with any far range capability also. They excel at staying up close. They're very similar to the grappler. They like to do what the grappler likes to do. The only difference is instead of grabbing you, they like to use strikes. And instead of having a slow walk speed, they have a fast walk speed. Also with rushdowns, you may notice that they have very high jump trajectories. They may have different ways to approach you in the air with their jumps. And they may even have access to a double jump or a triple jump, depending on the game. Guilty Gear Strive, Melia has 2 jumps. Chip has 3 jumps. They're both rushdowns. Kimberly from Street Fighter is another rushdown alongside Cammy. She actually has a type of projectile, but it's not a traditional one. But she still likes to do what the other rushdowns like to do, despite being in a different game. Get close, do lots of strikes, and then get back in and do the same thing. Rinse, repeat. So, with them being extremely fast and with them having access to a lot of strikes up close, they can feel very suffocating and very oppressive. So, and they're fast too. So, what does that mean for you? How do you defeat the rushdown archetype? Best way to defeat the rushdown archetype is to be aware that when it's your turn or when you gain the momentum to go on the offensive, they take more damage than other characters in the cast, typically. And they typically have a smaller life pool than other characters in the cast. So although when you play these games, you see the health bars at the top and they look equal, like your health bar is the same size as your opponent's, the fact is there's a number that dictates the size of that health pool. So you may have a health pool, if we're using Street Fighter, of 10,000. I think it's 10,000 if you're standard. And if you're like a rushdown, you may have like 1,000 less, so 9,000. And I think it's thousands. It might be 1,000 or 100. I'm not sure. I get mixed up with these names. But either way, the rushdown will have a little bit less of a health pool, and they take a little bit more damage to mitigate the fact that they're going to be all over you. So it makes it a little balanced for you to, okay, I got to do a lot of blocking. Okay, I'm getting knocked down a lot. But I know if I can prepare myself to get the situation back, I can do a lot of damage. I'm right back in the fight. And that's one way to deal with them, to just know that when it's your turn to attack, you can do a lot of damage and get back in the fight. So composure. One more thing, this is one of the harder things to do, but it can be the most effective, especially if it depends on the player, is to just use their speed against them. And the rushdown is going to always want to get in close. You don't have to guess if they want to get close, right? The rushdown wants to get close. So with that knowledge, you know they want to get close. If you have a good grasp of movement yourself, you don't have to be as fast as the rushdown. But if you know how to move your character, there are times when they jump at you, you can just go underneath them, walk underneath them, and play this game of keep away from them. And they will hate it. They will hate it. They will hate it. It will frustrate them. because now you're making it harder for them to do the thing that they want to do, which is get close and attack you. And so having a lot of patience and having awareness of the situation is the best ways to deal with a rushdown. And once again, what makes a rushdown strong? The fact that they're fast and they can get in, do lots of attacks at a high volume. What makes them weak is they have a small life pool, they take lots of damage, and they can overextend with their speed if you use it against them. Okay? So that's like a lot of archetypes we covered. That's 4 so far. It just seems like, how can there be any more archetypes? How can there be any more? But there's one more. This one's a bit unorthodox because you don't see these archetypes very often, but you've seen more in recent years, and that's the technical archetype. So a technical archetype. What is a technical archetype? Because it seems like, you're playing these games and it's hard for you to do the thing with your character. It feel like your character is technical. Let's say you have a balanced character. I'm learning how to play and I don't know my moves. I feel like everything is technical. Everything's hard to do. So what's the difference between one archetype and technical? What makes technical is they usually have a bit of an execution barrier to them. Well, actually, I should probably mention that as a weakness. But a strength is a resource. They usually have a resource meter attached to them. Some sort of resource that lets them change the dynamics of the game. So a resource, what's that? What does that look like? So like, a real life example would be if you are going to the shooting range and I'm sorry, not the shooting range. If you're just out in the field, not doing anything, right? And a bear comes at you, big bear comes at you, right? And you have like pepper spray or you have like a firearm on you, you're going to use that, right? And that becomes like a resource for you to use to change the outcome of this battle, as opposed to just using your own bare hands against a bear. So an example of that in fighting games, a character that encompasses this, let's look at Guilty Gear, because they have they have some. Zato equals 1. Zato equals 1 technical character that's very hard to master. Why is he technical? He's technical because he doesn't fight in a traditional sense of 1v1. He has a resource in a shadow named Eddie that lets him fight not just with himself, but with his shadow. So he turns the fight from 1v1 to 2v1. And I believe, there's another character in, I think, Blaze Blue that does it. But there's only 2 characters in like all the fighting games that does what he does. Maybe 2, maybe 3 if I'm forgetting, but there's like only 2 characters that can fight you 2v1. And he's one of them. And that will qualify him as a technical because up close he's okay. At mid he's okay. At far range he's okay. But that's if he's by himself. If he has his shadow Eddie with him, then he becomes very good up close. He becomes very good at mid range. And becomes very good at far range. So let's talk about another character. We'll probably stick in the same game because Guilty Gear has some. One of the more recent ones is Nagorookie. The character in Guilty Gear, the samurai. He's a technical character because he has a resource in his blood gauge, because he's like a vampire samurai. He has a blood gauge resource meter that works both for him and against him. It works for him because if he uses it properly, it amps his attacks and it just makes him much stronger than what he already is. But if you over abuse the mechanic and the gauge fills, it will actually start to deplete his life bar. And he will start to lose access to just his normal everyday moves. and he becomes very, very, very vulnerable. And that's a very unorthodox mechanic in the game because it's unique to him. Technical characters. Can we nail another technical character outside of this game? Let's look at Marvel. I think Marvel has some technical characters. I think Magneto in Marvel is a very technical character because he has, and again, what makes a technical character technical is they have something that's unique to them, that's unorthodox, that the game does not give everybody else. It just gives to them. So Magneto has a 8-way dash in which he can approach you not just 1, 2, 3, 4 ways, but he can approach you an additional 4 ways, 8 ways in total. How does that look? Well, in a fighting game, I'm sure you already experienced this, unless you play Tekken. When a character jumps at you, there's a jump trajectory. It's an arc. They jump from where they are to where you are. It's an arc trajectory. It's like it's an arch. Well, with Magneto, if he goes in the air, and he can also fly and hold his flight in place, but if he decides to jump, he can cancel his jump and he can land at you. He can cut his jump, and instead of it being an arch, he can make it like a triangle, and he can just come directly at you. And that changes the dynamics because you have to think, does he come straight at me or does he jump at me normally? Or, you have to really guess now just off his movement alone what he's going to do. So technical characters are usually characters that you're going to see seasoned players playing because you usually have to have a good grasp of the game before you can play a character that's technical. They're one of the more difficult characters that you could ever play in fighting games, and they're made like that because they have explosive, unique techniques that only they have. And that pretty much falls into their weakness. Although they are very, very, very special, they're very unique. That thing that makes them special and unique can usually hurt them, and is usually the reason why they lose the games. A Nagaruki player is not going to lose unless they overuse their resource. A Zato player is not going to lose, at least not lose easily, unless he loses his shadow. Because the character Zato, and I played this character for a long time, the character Zato is one of the best characters in the game when he has a shadow, and he's the worst character in the game without the shadow. Who's the other? Oh, Magneto. And Magneto can also, I haven't played a lot of Magneto, but I'm sure if Magneto loses, it's because his movement is not working, like his unique thing is not working, or it's being used against him. And so, technical. Once again, what makes technical? They are extremely unique in the fact that they usually have a resource meter attached. You'll see like something under their life bar or by their name, like an icon, and you'll notice that icon lights up when you do something, or when they do something, or doesn't light up when nothing happens. It'll be an icon there and not an icon over your name unless you yourself are playing technical. And when they use something, you'll see that icon lights up. All right, it's an additional resource on the screen. That's how you identify it usually. If not, they'll be throwing 1,000 things at you like False from Guilty Gear. They'll be just doing weird stuff. I don't know how to explain it. They just do weird stuff, and it's crazy. You'll know that they're crazy. Okay, so that's technical. All right, so we'll recap the 5 that we went over tonight. All right, zoner archetype, grappler, the grappler archetype, balanced, the balanced archetype, rushdown, our rushdown archetype, and technical, our technical archetypes. So which one should you play? All right. If I had to order it or give you a bit of a, reference, I would, since you're beginners at fighting games, I would start with a balanced character. So what are some examples? Ryu from Street Fighter, Ken from Street Fighter, Jin from Tekken, Kazuya from Tekken, and what game am I missing? Guilty Gear. Kai from Kai Kisuke, Guilty Gear. Soul Bad Guy, Guilty Gear. And Marvel, oh my God, is there a balanced character in Marvel? That game is so off the yin yang. I don't think there's a single balanced character in that game unless Ryu's a guest character in that game. If Ryu's in the game, play Ryu. You're gonna have a hard time finding a balanced character in Marvel. Like, my goodness. But yeah, if like guest character, if you see Ryu in Marvel, then play Marvel. Play Ryu or something. That's who I would recommend. Who I would not recommend if you're a beginner is technical. I would not recommend using a technical archetype simply because they just have more things you got to worry about. And on the in-between, go for it. Plus, just play any other archetype you can. For me, if I was just to give a ordered list to someone, I would say balanced first, rush down second, zoner third, grappler fourth, because their speed is kind of bad, and technical last. That's the list I would give, the order I would give it in. If you just want to experiment, play around with the cast, do it in that order. Okay? And so, once again, guys, don't forget, link in the description to go grab your Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Fighting Game Secrets. Yes, 45-page read. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. Don't forget to grab that on your way out, because this is Imperial Kingdom Gaming. Remember, this is like a night school vibe. There's like you're coming into class, so don't forget to grab the materials you need to understand the curriculum that we're doing in the class. All right. So enjoy doing this video for you all. If you found it helpful, if you liked it, go ahead and like it. Go ahead, subscribe, and share it with other new beginners who are looking for this information. And also, leave a comment down below. What did you think about this video? Did you know about some of these archetypes already? Were you familiar with some of them, or were they brand new? Did you not have a clue about any of these archetypes and you just found out a lot today? I mean, let us know. How many archetypes did you know already, or did you know any at all? We would love to know. Okay? So, this is Imperial Kingdom Gaming, where we take beginners to intermediate to advanced players so they can learn how to enjoy fighting games. I'm Headmaster Rich. Once again, IKG. Fight the good fight and make it a good fight. And I'll see you all in the next one. Be sure to come on back. All right. Bye-bye.